to help us put together this strategic guide for talent acquisition professionals. A few webinar tips. You will be muted throughout the session, so if you have any questions, be sure to enter them in the questions pane, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. We also encourage you to tweet throughout the webinar today using the hashtag Glassdoor. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers. Scott Sell is the VP of Talent Selection and Executive Recruitment at Mercy and has been in the recruitment and talent acquisition space for the past 15+ years. Mercy is the 6th largest Catholic healthcare organization in the U.S. with annual net revenue in excess of $4 billion. As the Director of Product Marketing at Glassdoor, Allison Haddon helps shape Glassdoor's employer products to best meet the needs of today's talent acquisition leaders and educate companies on how to effectively manage their brand to attract and retain top talent. And now I'd like to hand it over to Allison to get started. Allison?
Thanks, Alicia. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for spending a couple of minutes out of your day today. Really happy to have Scott here as well from Mercy. Thanks for being here, Scott. What we're going to walk through today, I'm really excited about it. We're going to share the results of a survey that we did recently with almost 500 different respondents that talked about sort of the state of healthcare recruiting and how to better recruit healthcare professionals. We're going to talk about the state of healthcare today, recruitment tactics that work, some retention insights, and then Scott's going to do a bit of a deep dive into his experience recruiting, obviously, in the healthcare industry for Mercy. So a little bit of information on this survey. This is the second survey that we've done in 2014 where we've turned our own users on Glassdoor to see what they value most when they're being recruited. So our first survey that we did earlier this year was on how to recruit software engineers. We were so excited to follow it up with our second survey in the series, which is how to recruit healthcare professionals. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, we were a little bit worried when we were reaching out to healthcare professionals, as these aren't necessarily the people who are in front of their screens all day, like we might be. But we were thrilled to get nearly 500 healthcare professionals that were on Glassdoor contribute to this survey so that they could let us know when they plan to look for jobs this year, what traits they value most in a recruiter and in a company, and what factors would make them consider leaving their existing role. So as you can see now on the screen, we've got a great blog post and an infographic up as well that you can check out at our website at employers.glassdoor.com/blog. Or keep in mind that following this webinar, we'll be sending out an email with a complete guide for you to reference with these survey results. So let's get started, so I can share what we found in this survey. So the state of healthcare, before we really delve into the state of it and start sharing some of the results from the survey, I'd love to launch a quick poll and just find out, when it comes to your current challenges, where are you most focused? Is it your, lowering cost per hire? Is it time to hire that's your biggest challenge? Or is it candidate quality? So I'm sure most of you are going, well, it's all of them, right? How can I possibly choose one? But I guess what's at the forefront right now? What are you hearing about most, or what are you talking about most within your organization? I'm going to share the results in just 1 second. It looks like about half of you have voted. I'd love to get 3/4 of you to vote. It looks like right now candidate quality is the majority. So just 1 more second. Would love it if you can just select one. It's going to help guide our discussion today. I'm going to close it in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the results. So it looks like 65% of you are saying your #1 challenge out of those 3 is candidate quality. Your second being time to hire, your third being cost per hire. So candidate quality, it sounds like, is the biggest challenge for most of the people that are on the line right now. What that's telling me is that it's not so much about getting more applicants or getting more resumes in your pipeline. It's about getting the right ones, because, as I like to say, who wants to sit at home on a Sunday morning drinking coffee, going through resumes after resume after resume, only to recognize that they're not a good fit for the position, and it really just ends up being a huge waste of your time, not to mention your company's budget. So that's interesting. So let's go right into sort of the state of healthcare, and let's talk about what we found in the survey. So recruiting healthcare professionals. So there are over 17 million healthcare employees right now in the U.S., based on the U.S. Census Bureau in 2013. So some research that we did outside of our survey, there was a research study with Lean Human Capital and the Recruiter Academy in 2012 that found that the average time to fill for more than 23% of industry positions was 12 days or more. So not 12 days, that probably sounds pretty low to some people, but 12 days or more. And the average industry cost per hire is, according to Burson and Associates in 2012, it's $2,127 was the average industry cost per hire. So we're going to go turn it over to Scott a little bit later, but I'd love to turn it over to him right now, Scott, and just ask you how these metrics compare to what you've experienced at Mercy or in your other positions within healthcare.
Sure, no, I appreciate that, and hello, everybody. In terms of the time to fill numbers, I would say we here at Mercy, if that was at 12 days, we'd be very happy. I think when I joined the organization here in January of 2013, we were averaging probably about 45 days time to fill. So certainly supports the numbers that you have there. And then in terms of average industry cost per hire, I think that's a number, too, that I would say certainly is on the conservative side. I think that when you factor in, manager level, supervisor level positions, you can even see it go a little bit north of that. But I think it's certainly, I think, does a good job pinpointing the fact that there is significant time to fill and a significant cost and financial investment made when hiring a healthcare employee.
Got it. Thanks, Scott. I'm looking forward to hearing more a little bit later in the webinar about a little bit more of a deep dive into Mercy. So moving forward, so this is in terms of timing. So in this survey, it's important to know which tactics work best when you're looking to beat the competition for these candidates. So in the survey of nearly 500 healthcare professionals last month, we found that 64% of them said that they plan to look for a job in the next year. So I don't know if this scares people, whether or not it's the reputation, the culture, the opportunities that are presenting themselves, salary, compensation, benefits. This is an incredibly high number, right? So more than half of healthcare professionals that were surveyed out of the 500 said that they're planning to look for a new job in the next year. 19% of those that responded said that they have no plans to look for a job at all, and 42% said that they plan to look for a new job in the next 3 months. Pretty incredible. In terms of the healthcare professionals on Glassdoor, I wanted to point out the top 5 positions that are clicked on in the healthcare sector on Glassdoor. So the top 5 healthcare professionals that are currently on Glassdoor, and again, this is related back to also our survey, which we got about 500 people responding to. The number 1 is physical therapist. The number 2 most popular healthcare professional on Glassdoor is a registered nurse. 3 is an occupational therapist. 4 is a nurse practitioner. And 5 is a medical assistant. Scott, are these consistent with the positions that you have open or the positions that you typically have on your team at Mercy?
They are. I mean, these are all highly sought after positions. Very high in demand, relatively low in supply. So yeah, I think it's very reflective of what we see.
Great. So let's share now some recruitment tactics that work, again, based on the feedback from these survey respondents. So where are they learning about jobs? This is really interesting. So in the survey we did last month, 87% of them said that they refer to online job sites like Glassdoor when learning about jobs. 33% said that they hear about jobs from either friends or coworkers, and 30% said they hear about open positions from recruiters directly. So Scott, how does this this map to your experience at Mercy?
I think this is right in line with what we see. I mean, certainly the most significant resource that we're finding out there right now are online job sites and social media networks like Glassdoor. You know, I'll also throw out there that, you know, probably just you know, right below the recruiter number there, you know, probably looking somewhere between 23 to 25% of our hires are coming through coworker referrals. But those often start through navigating some of the online job sites and social media networks. So, but no, I think it's certainly spells to the fact that you know, online jobs is in sites. That's where the majority of your traffic is today.
Got it. All right. So next we've got social media outreach. Again, an interesting question posed to the 500 that responded in our recent healthcare professional survey on Glassdoor. 43% said that they find social media outreach from the company hiring as an effective way to learn about positions. And you know, this is important because you need to ensure that your presence online is really resonating with your audience that you're looking to attract. It's important to analyze and compare traffic to different social sites and ensure that your message is consistent and it's resonating with the right audience. Glassdoor has a number of different tools to help with this, which we'll talk about in a bit. But pretty interesting how much has changed just even in the last couple of years. 43%, wow, finding social media outreach being an effective way to learn about new job opportunities. Next up, Meetups. This is interesting. I was surprised here. So another tactic that was uncovered in this survey that you might not have thought about in the past is 34% say that they appreciate Meetups at the company hiring where they can connect with other healthcare professionals. So this is a little bit different than sort of the traditional job fair or career fair where you've got your booth set up and you might be with a number of other different you know, talent competitors. But a more informal meetup in which candidates or potential future candidates can meet with current employees and just find out a little bit more about a day in the life. 34% that they appreciate these kind of things where they can connect with other professionals. We actually uncovered a similar trend in our software engineering survey, which tells me that, you know, these groups today want an outlet so that they can network with each other and also get a feel for your work environment before they even set a foot in the door for an interview. And then conferences. 32% said that conferences with other healthcare professionals help them uncover opportunities. You know, you'll notice in our guide that we are going to email out after this webinar. It will break out into detail how the results sort of broke down when recruiting males versus females in the healthcare field. So be sure to check that out as well. So now let's talk about 3 attributes that healthcare professionals value most from recruiters. Again, we surveyed and got responses from almost 500 healthcare professionals that are on Glassdoor sharing the results of this data in this webinar. So let me first share a snapshot of these results. So number 1, 70% said that they, in terms of the attributes that they value most from recruiters, 70% said that transparency about the pros and cons of different companies and hospitals were important. 65% said they want the employer to work as hard for me as I do for the employer. 61%, I want them to be knowledgeable about my experience. Again, this is what the survey respondents working in the healthcare industry said they want or they value most from recruiters. 56% said they want someone with a strong understanding of the medical community. 54% said that they look for solid communication skills. And 43% said they don't want the recruiter to be pushy. So we'll dig into each one in detail. So number 1, you know, no surprise here, transparency is really a must these days. Glassdoor recently launched a program to help people note when they are an open company. We encourage you to participate in that. Open Company is a fantastic program that encourages companies and employers to take a couple extra steps on Glassdoor. It doesn't cost anything. Basically, they can do things like add photos of what their workplace is like, engage current employees to post reviews and ratings on Glassdoor, share a link on their career site that shares with people that they are an open and transparent company and they encourage people to check them out on Glassdoor, and a couple other things. We've got over 100 companies right now that have been successful in becoming an open company. And so look for in your follow-up email more information on that. So what healthcare professionals saying when it comes to transparency is 70% of them in our survey said that they care about the transparency of recruiters. So this is the leading attribute, 70% that healthcare professionals in the survey valued when it came to being recruited. And so what does this look like? How can you be more transparent? So I know Scott's going to talk about it a little bit later, but one of the key do's, and these are direct survey feedback from those that responded. One of them said, do be honest about the position, including the downsides and its challenges, right? Talk about the pros and the cons. Don't try and sell a job description. Instead, stay matter of fact, right? More transparency and honesty. What's your take on this, Scott? What are you finding when it comes to transparency and how critical it is when you are recruiting and talking to top talent?
No, I think it's critical. I mean, I think that as everyone who is recruiting in healthcare today knows, these candidates have an array of different options and choices, really at their fingertips. So they can really pick and choose where they want to work. So you're right. I mean, if it's trying to sell a job description, while a physical therapist at one system may have a few variances in another system, for the most part, it's the same job. So really, what's the big differentiator? It's really going to come down to the culture, and that's where we're finding candidates really want that transparency. Is tell us about what a day is in the life of working at Mercy, and we don't sugarcoat it. I mean, for those of us who work here, there's a lot of positives and pros, and we talk about that, but we also talk about those things that are quite honestly realistic within the job. So I think that at least candidates very much can be appreciative of knowing that, hey, this is what I'm signing up for. If I'm going to make a move from one organization to another, they want to know what they're getting. So I think without a doubt, transparency is critical in today's game.
Yeah, and I find this outside of the healthcare industry as well. I think it's really a common theme right now. The old way of candidates getting information about what it's like to work at an organization or a company, 5-6 years ago, you would have to know someone within an organization to really get the inside scoop, and if not, you were forced to look at, the career website, the job description, or really trust the conversations with recruiters to understand what it's like to work somewhere. Now, when it comes to candidates finding out about what it's like to work somewhere, they go to Glassdoor to get that information, and as a result, it's really critical that a company's brand and story is promoted on there. And as you said, Scott, I think today it's not perfection that candidates are looking for, because frankly they don't trust it. They know that nothing's perfect. What they're really looking for is transparency and that authenticity. And be it in a conversation with a recruiter or going online to Glassdoor and looking at a company's messaging and a story versus the reviews that are up there, candidates can sort of sniff out that inauthentic concept from a very, very far away. And obviously, as a result of the survey, it's pretty clear that that's what they're looking for, this transparency. Okay, so the second thing in the survey that when asked, what's most important to you when dealing with recruiters in the healthcare industry, so proactive recruiting. The number 2 is be proactive and do your homework about the audience you're recruiting. 65% say they want recruiters to work as hard for them as they do for the employers. So kind of what does this mean, or how does this translate? Just some comments. People requested, be knowledgeable with candidates, right? One way to do this is to potentially meet with your hiring managers regularly to ensure that you're up to speed on the different areas that you're recruiting for. And we can't emphasize enough that, if you're able to set the right expectations about everything from salary packages to job duties, company goals, and culture, when you set the right tone and you set the right expectations from the very beginning in terms of what candidates find on your career site and on Glassdoor, through the hiring process in terms of how they interact with recruiters, the conversations that they have, all the way through the interview process, into new hire onboarding, and then ongoing retention. If that's consistent throughout, the expectations that should translate to, going back to that original number, significantly less than 64% saying that they are going to be looking for a new job in the next year. Right? If you set the right expectations and you hire the right fit candidates, the impact on that should be, it should impact your attrition and your retention of current employees. So how to be a proactive recruiter. A tip here, so do be realistic about job duties and compensation. Same goes for company goals and culture, as I just said. I think today's candidates can sniff that out from a mile away. Don't leave candidates hanging and wondering. Someone said, once I interview, give me feedback on whether or not I'm getting hired. So of course it would be nice if, I'm sure for every candidate, if during an interview or at the end of an interview we could give them a yay or a nay. I'm not sure if that's possible, and I'm sure every job seeker would want that, but at a very minimum, and I hear this in other industries outside of healthcare, candidates say, please just don't leave me in the dark, right? Just let me know either way. Communicate with me. Don't let me stand there waiting. So one of the practices we have here at Glassdoor is we're sure to tell candidates exactly what the process looks like, and when we make a commitment to them and say, thanks so much for having this phone conversation with us, we're speaking with other candidates now. Look for an email from me by the end of the day on Friday that will let you know where we are with candidates and where you fit in the process. Those are just the little things that it obviously makes a big difference when it comes to recruiting talent today. So the third response from the survey respondents that said, this is what's most important to me when dealing with healthcare industry recruiters. The number 3 reason that was important to them was they want recruiters that know the medical field. So again, this gets back to really just doing your homework and being the expert when it comes to the positions that you're looking to fill. We heard a similar message from our software engineering services survey as well. Today's candidates really want to feel like recruiters, that they are the expert on what the candidates are going to be doing within the organization. So what they're saying specifically is 61% said they want to work with recruiters that are knowledgeable about their experiences. And 56% said that they want recruiters that have a strong understanding of the medical community. Again, candidates are looking to recruiters to get information about what the expectations really should be for the job. And it's clear that many of them ideally would like to work with a recruiter that has a really good understanding, maybe not necessarily coming up through the industry, but it definitely has done their homework and has a really firm grasp of what the day-to-day responsibilities are of the job and of the position, so that they have the right expectations going in. So next I want to share some retention insights from the survey, and then I'm going to hand it over to Scott to share more about his experience and his success recruiting healthcare professionals for Mercy. So some really fantastic data here. We asked in our survey, and again, we got almost 500 respondents, healthcare professionals that are currently on Glassdoor. And here are the top reasons why they say they leave their jobs. So getting back to that original stat of, more than half of healthcare professionals that were surveyed said that they are going to be looking for a new job in the next year. So no surprises here. It looks like, money, salary, and compensation is the #1 motivator, followed by career growth opportunities and relationships with managers. So this is interesting. We obviously think money is always the top motivator, but I think the interesting thing here is it's not the only motivator. Salary and compensation, 75% is the number, but look how closely career growth opportunities. I think as we look to younger and younger generations, it's less about the dollars today, and it's more about the learning and the growth and the career progression that we can offer some of those younger generations, and definitely the millennials. Relationships with managers, so that's always been one of the top 12 indicators of employee engagement in the Gallup Q12 survey. So the relationship and feeling valued by your manager is something that's sometimes I think more important than we think when it comes to retaining our current employees. Location and commute, you can see here, type of work. So again, culture is critically important. Scott already talked about that. And then we've got amount of work, senior leadership, relationship with peers, and it looks like things like the mission and values, frequency of required travel. Not sure why these are so low. I'm surprised about that. But I think a lot of it really has to do with the expectations going into the job and whether or not they're consistent from a company's profile on Glassdoor to their career site to the entire process with a recruiter from start to finish. So again, money isn't the only motivator. This is really, really interesting. 66% of those surveyed, and there were almost 500, said that they are likely to accept less money to work at a company or a hospital with great cultures. And I think this echoes what Scott talked about. It is critically important that you have a strong culture, that it's authentic with the messaging that you have out there. And then I think the last piece of it is you want to make sure that you are really promoting that culture and values in places where your job seekers are looking for it. So obviously your career site, Glassdoor is another place where you're going to want to make sure you are really showcasing your employer brand there, and then also on other social channels. So similarly, 56% are likely to accept less money to work at a company or hospital that values helping people above all else. So obviously this is a unique industry question. It's not just the reputation or the brand of the company or hospital, but we're talking about, what really matters here when it comes to healthcare professionals is, it's about helping people. Hopefully this is why they got into this industry to begin with. And more than half are saying, yes, I will take less money if I can work for a hospital or an organization that really puts the care of people above all else. And I assume that means both patients, but then also employees. So interesting there. So as I said, a few tips on how to stay competitive when it comes to recruiting and retaining top healthcare professionals. First things first, would recommend with that 75% of respondents saying salary and compensation is a reason why you would potentially leave an organization. You're going to want to evaluate what your compensation packages are to ensure that they're competitive with the market. Glassdoor has fantastic tools, would encourage everyone to go to Glassdoor, take a look at what people are posting in terms of their current salary today, and see how those titles stack up against the same titles at other companies. You have the opportunity to do that on Glassdoor, which is pretty powerful data. Another thing you can do, so again, 62% said that they would leave due to career growth opportunities. So a great way that you can ensure your company is keeping current employees happy is to check out a report we have on Glassdoor where you can see what the most frequently cited pros and cons are within your organization. It'll allow you to see strengths or weaknesses within your org and potentially fix problems that exist. Also, make sure that you have that, whatever your story is, whatever type of career growth opportunities you have, make sure that information is on your Glassdoor profile and on your career site as well so that the candidates that are looking for it can find it. And then lastly, 42% would leave as a result of relationships with their managers, and 86% said that they're more likely to apply to a company that a friend recommends. So definitely check on Glassdoor to see how many of your employees would recommend a company to a friend. One of the key pieces of survey data that we collect from over 23 million job seekers that are on Glassdoor right now. This is going to help give you the pulse on really what's going on within your organization. And again, it doesn't cost anything, free to check out, lots of fantastic data that's there on Glassdoor that can help you get a pulse for what's really going on within your organization. So with that, I want to hand it over to Scott Sell to go over his successes and share some of his tips on how to recruit professionals based on his experience at Mercy. So I will turn it over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that. So, as I mentioned earlier, I joined Mercy January of 2013, and I was contacted by somebody who was working within the organization. I knew very little about Mercy. In fact, quite honestly, I was in a different industry. But when I came in, interviewed with the senior leadership team, met several of the peers, quickly recognized a culture and an organization that I wanted to be part of. Very progressive, very much about continuous improvement, a very collaborative, caring and compassionate environment. But when I took the role as to head up the talent selection function for Mercy, to be very honest with you, none of that messaging was being done through our advertising. Quite candidly, we were spending all of our advertising dollars in a traditional recruitment strategy with a job board and posting positions and a resume database, but not really getting the word out and really leveraging the ability to be more transparent, to really get out there and look for candidates from a number of different segments. So the first thing that we did, and we'll go to the next slide here, is we needed to establish an online presence. And the fact is candidates today, in addition to really being able to kind of pick and choose where they want to go, they're a much more educated audience than maybe what we've had in past years. I mean, with the emergence of different social media sites like Glassdoor, candidates really have the opportunity and ability to kind of get in there and see, what is this company about? What's their culture like? What do the people that work there, what do they like? What do they dislike? What's the interview process look like? What's the compensation? So a much more educated audience, and we really felt that having a partnership with Glassdoor was going to give us an ability and opportunity to better sell our story. So that was one of the first things that we did. If you move on to the next slide, part of, as I mentioned, with candidates being much more educated today, I mean, this statistic is, while it's mind-boggling, it's really not that surprising. That, I mean, 94% of healthcare professionals have an opportunity to read an online review before they join the company. Those candidates that fall into that 6% typically aren't the candidates that we hire. We want an educated candidate base. We want people to know who we are and what we're all about. So I think that's critical. Move on to the next slide, please. So part of our messaging was really, as I mentioned, I identified some great things about Mercy that made us that make this company what it is, but it just wasn't reflected and represented in any of our advertising. So in working with an outside agency that specializes in sort of brand messaging and things like that, we really identified a number of different vehicles, one, again, being Glassdoor, that we really kind of went in and had an opportunity to put together something that's much more inspiring, much more motivating, something that's going to capture the attention of those passive job seekers, which really make up a good bulk of today's healthcare professionals. And if we go on to the next slide, please. So you'll see, we've been able to kind of capture sort of the messaging here, show the collaboration and unity of a team, and some happy coworkers that are all authentic and not hired models off the street. So if we go on to the next slide here, we'll talk a little bit about some of our challenges. So when I came in, one of the first things that I had asked the recruitment team is where are we finding our candidates? And for the most part, they said, well, we're posting the position, and we're hoping that talented people are going to apply. And given the number of openings that we had, we recognize these are all positions very high in demand, relatively low in supply. And so much of our business initiatives are critical to make sure that we have the people in place. It's significant impact to our bottom line when we don't have these positions filled on a timely basis. And quite honestly, we were spending significant cost per hire dollars because we didn't have a diversified strategy. So then if you look sort of at the next page here, this shows you, if you look to the far left of this graph, Mercy is that line that's on the very bottom. So you'll see in September of 2012, we did not have a partnership with Glassdoor at that time. We really compared ourselves up against the other two, our biggest competitors here in the St. Louis market, and you'll see we trailed significantly in terms of page views of people being able to take a look at who Mercy is and what we're all about. Well, you'll see that we altered and we made changes. The partnership with Glassdoor really began for Mercy in May of 2013. And you'll notice the upswing that within a really short period of time, we went from number 3 in this market for page views to where we're significantly leading in that category. So, really by being able to put together some messaging that provided the transparency, who are we, what are we all about, and then really, part of the partnership with Glassdoor also allows us to get our job postings onto the site versus someone looking at the Mercy site and seeing one of our competitors' ads. So we were able to do some better control in terms of messaging. So as we move on to this next slide here, you'll see, we've seen a 4 times boost in our traffic, and really, while our intent, similar to what the poll showed earlier, it wasn't that we had challenges in terms of number of candidates, but we really wanted to get higher quality candidates. So the one thing that, while we're number 1 in traffic against competitors and very proud of a 7-day faster time to hire with 20% lower cost per hire, what I want to share with that is it's with a higher quality candidate. So when you can improve quality and reduce expenses, that's a significant win-win. And when we move on to, I think that covers the case study here.
That does. What I'd love to do is Scott, open it up to questions. So for those of you that are on the line, on the right-hand side in your control panel, there's an opportunity to ask questions. I do have a couple here, but would love to get some other questions as well. I know someone asked, what's going to be included following this webinar. So just to let you know, following this webinar, attendees are going to receive a follow-up email that has a strategic guide to recruiting healthcare professionals. It essentially is going to walk through everything we've talked about so far, and most importantly, it's going to share the detailed results of the survey that we've been talking about of over 500 healthcare professionals. You'll receive a link to this recording so that in the event you do want to take a screenshot or take a look at the deck, that will be included in the recording. And it'll also give you the opportunity to sign up for a free employer account. So if you're not currently working with Glassdoor, if you want access to basic reporting so that you can see what your traffic and your brand awareness is compared to other hospitals or healthcare organizations, you can do that at no cost by clicking on the link, saying that you are a representative of your organization, and you can get instant access, which is pretty fantastic. And yes, I did say free. It's a free employer account. The idea is, we're trying to get employers involved in the conversation here. We've got over 300,000 companies that are profiled on Glassdoor. With the average rating of those 300,000 companies right now is about a 3.2 out of 5, and 70% of those that are on Glassdoor say that they're actually okay or satisfied with their job. We've got 23 members right now that are on Glassdoor, taking a look at over 6 million reviews and ratings, interview experiences, salaries, photos on those companies. Many of which, as I mentioned, are in the healthcare sector. So it gives us an opportunity, obviously like with this survey, to leverage that data so that we can better educate recruiters, like those that are on the phone, when it comes to healthcare, and then also share that information with healthcare organizations so that they can get a better pulse for what today's candidates want, how their company stacks up against the competition, and better ways in which they can engage their current employees. So there's one question here for you, Scott, and I'd encourage anyone else to send in questions as well for Scott or myself related to Mercy, recruiting in healthcare, or even Glassdoor. But Scott, they wanted to know, how do you communicate your employer value proposition to your current employees at Mercy?
So how is the communication done internally?
Correct.
So I think that great question, and I think what it is, we have found that quite honestly, our coworkers are our best ambassadors. So while we work in the talent selection function here, we wouldn't be able to get this job done if we didn't have a network of internal coworkers that were out there really selling our praises here. And so what we really do is we look to from a transparency standpoint. I think the recruitment team, none of us are experts in healthcare. But what we have to do is it's important to establish credibility with candidates. So we spend a bulk of our time in the trenches with the different leaders within the different departments, really understanding the business, because having that knowledge then carries on over to the conversations that we have with our candidates. So it really is it's a partnership. I think that one of the things, quite honestly, that we haven't done with Glassdoor that we're looking to do here in the near term is to promote an internal campaign where we can really drive more traffic to the site to provide ratings. And we want people to be honest, and we want them to be candid. And but we know that there's a when you go throughout the organization and you say, why do you work for Mercy? They've got so many great things to say. So their advertising messaging is much better than anything you could come up with, even through a creative agency. So we want to really capitalize that and encourage coworkers to kind of get in there and help drive more traffic to the site.
Oh, Scott, sorry, I was just on mute. We've got another great question here. So someone asked, what are some of the best practices for getting therapists to respond to cold calls and emails? Any ideas there, Scott?
What is the best way? Well, I think it's, again, you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the candidate, and you have to understand they are getting bombarded with calls and emails and messaging from recruiters. So, what you've got to do is you've got to do something that differentiates yourself from the volume that they're giving, and I really think it comes down to authenticity and transparency. I think people appreciate that. I think but there's got to be some value-based proposition for them to make a move. So I think that initially, what's happened is this, recruitment, talent acquisitions become much more of an engagement process. So I think, we've been sort of molded to where we've got to fill these positions, and the reality is with those folks, you may not bring them in the very first time that you've got an opening that you reach out to them on. But I think what separates, top-notch talent selection professionals from those who are just trying to fill a job is staying in touch with those candidates and keeping them apprised of what's happening within the organization. And most people love to talk about themselves, so even if it's just tapping on their shoulder to ask industry advice and things like that. But it really is. It's all about the engagement.
Awesome. And I think we've got time for one more. This is a good one. So someone asked, we're struggling hiring rather low-paid but very technical positions. Any way to find the newbies to the field that isn't just posting with the colleges in town? So any ideas on that, Scott?
So yeah. So I mean, you definitely have to build those relationships with the universities. But I think in terms of so if you sort of penetrated your local market and they're only pushing out so much talented entry-level folks for those positions, then what you have to do is obviously expand your reach. But I think that you got to understand with those folks coming right out of school, while money is important to everybody in choosing their line of work, I think that percentage even would dip down dramatically within that level of candidate, because I think at that point they're looking to get their foot in the door, they're looking to get experience. So that's where I would really encourage, talk about the skill set, or talk about the technology that you're working with, or some of the innovations and things that you're doing creative, because I think in those type of positions, when people are accepting a job, they're sort of thinking already about, resume builder and how does this sort of prop me up for my next position. So I think, it's really coming up with some messaging beyond the fact that if you know from a financial standpoint the compensation isn't going to be the motivator, then find what some of those other factors are, whether it's your culture, whether it's the technology you work with, if you have the ability to sell upward mobility and growth. Those are the things I think you're going to find attractive to people at the entry-level ranks.
That's great. Awesome. And then the last question I had here, someone said, the data that you showed about Mercy, and this is for me, is that, do you have to pay for that? So it's a good question. So the report that we showed here earlier when I was talking about, let's see, this really fantastic graph right here that shows the brand awareness really of Mercy compared to two other competitors. This is an example of a report that's available with a free employer account. So no, you do not have to pay for this. This is the kind of free reporting that we're including for any organization that wants to get a better grip on how their reputation and their brand stacks up against other talent. There's a ton of other free reports that we include as well. And as I mentioned previously in the webinar, in the follow-up email after this session, you will receive a link there. Would encourage people to do it. Sign up for a free employer account so that you can start to access this information for free. Share the data with other people on your team. Print out a PDF or even invite people to do it via email. Okay, so it looks like we are wrapping up here. I've got one last poll that I wanted to ask. And just very quickly, how did this session fare versus your expectations? Did it meet expectations? Did it exceed? Did it go far below your expectations? Would love your feedback. Keep in mind that we are going to finish a couple minutes early, so we should get bonus points for that because who doesn't love a couple minutes back in their day, right? Okay, I'm just going to give a couple more seconds. Really would love to get some feedback here on whether or not we met or exceeded expectations. Fantastic. Looks like overwhelmingly people were really happy with this session and found it a really good use of time. So perfect. All right, I want to thank Scott from Mercy for being here, for sharing his story and some of his tips on how to recruit healthcare professionals. Thanks so much for being here, Scott. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. I appreciate the invite, and no, I hope it was beneficial and helpful for those on the call here today.
Great, and thank you all for taking time out of your day to learn more. Look for the email that will have the strategic guide on how to recruit healthcare professionals based on the recent survey we did of almost 500 healthcare professionals that are on Glassdoor. Feel free to reply to the email or also reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at Allison Hadden. You can also email me at Allison with 1L.Hadden, Hadden, @glassdoor.com if you have any other questions. Thanks so much and have a great day, everyone.